Welcome to Sydney for my overview of the Money Expo, as well as my first ever experience on live radio. So the staff at the Sydney Town Hall have been kind enough to allow me to use this lovely treasury room of the Town Hall. I'm also testing out this tracking feature on my new gimbal, my little camera stand. So you'll notice that this tracks me as I wander around the room. This is very impressive. The technology is very, very flash. So the setup, as expected, was incredibly strenuous, and it was a full day. Big special thanks once again to Keith Elliott from Australian Specialty Coins. It's one of those jobs that often you look at the end result and it looks pretty manageable. It's just, quite a few tables and lamps in a hall, but then you need to factor in the electrical components and the configuration of the event. You also need to bear in mind the flow of the crowd as they come in, and you want to make sure that everyone hopefully has the best experience possible and it doesn't get too congested or too busy. And I hope we did a reasonably good job of that this time around. So this trip also featured my first ever live radio experience. I'd never been into a studio and I had no idea what to expect. And I'll be honest, it was every bit as intimidating as I had thought it might be. So I made my way down to the 2GB studios. I went in, I met with John, which was a really cool experience. It's a little surreal, and I think it's funny to consider that sometimes at these Money Expos, when people meet me and they watch the channel, they talk about how strange it is to meet someone that they've watched on YouTube and things like that. And then for me, I get the same effect with someone like John Stanley when I see him in the media and things like that and hear him on the radio, to then go into the studio and have him come out of the booth and say, "Hey Matt, how you going?" It's a real spin out. So we get into the booth. I have no idea how this works. I almost expect a countdown, 3, 2, 1, you're live. But we sat down, there was a moment of quiet, and then I noticed a red light illuminate in front of my microphone. And at this point, I still had my headset in front of me on the table, and I just worked it out just based on the red light. Oh, okay, we're live. It's happening. We're on. I looked around to see if I could find someone to ask, should I be wearing headphones? Because I've watched podcasts, and generally whenever I see anything involving radio, people have their headsets on. So I was a little flustered, a little panicked, and decided to just take the initiative and put the headset on, which allowed me to clearly hear John as well as any of the callers, which was obviously very important when I was going to be answering questions live on the air. So without warning or preparation, the questions began to flow through. It was also really nice to have a conversation with John just about how I found myself getting involved in the industry, and to give a bit of paint a picture as to who Matt Thompson is.
But how did this all start for you? You're a young bloke who's become, because you imagine that someone who's a coin expert is someone who's probably, a bit older than me, maybe about Ray Hadley's age, who's, seen it all, but it loves coins, and yet you're a very young man. So what got you into it?
That's a very good question, and it's something that I never followed, and I think this probably applies to my life in general. I've never really followed a clear linear path. It actually started out,
So the questions came through. Fortunately, none of them were really well beyond my scope of knowledge. I think anyone, whenever you do something like this, particularly live on national radio, and for that matter, I think 2GB is probably the largest national radio station in Australia. So I think it's also a case of, if I sat there and thought about it too long, I probably would have panicked and maybe fumbled my words. But John is a great interviewer, and I was very comfortable in the studio. So fortunately, it all went really smoothly, and I really enjoyed the experience. So I look forward to seeing you again soon, John. It was a hoot, and I can't wait for the next one. Moving on to the Money Expo. So after the setup, which as I mentioned is incredibly stressful, difficult, it's the date on the Money Expo calendar that I circle and just dread. I probably need to shift my mindset and get a little more excited as I tend to do. But I hate setup. I hate setup, and I can't stand pack down. They are the two least enjoyable parts of a Money Expo for me. However, Saturday went off without a hitch. There was a huge lineup for the show product, which was great. And there was a lot of people getting involved and just buying and selling. I even saw some trades happening, which is always good to see. People upgrading their collection or shifting their focus and consolidating the areas that they're focused on, which I'm a big advocate for. And I wish I could take my own advice on that front as well, because gee whiz, my collecting, I have confessed this before, it's very, very broad and eclectic. But seeing people that are making the conscious decision to refine their collection and focus on one key area is really, really great to see. Let's take a little bit of a look. I'll see if I can get access to any other rooms or any other areas. I'd love to give you a little bit of a tour of the Sydney Town Hall. This is a very historic building in the Sydney CBD. And I've been here a couple of times before, but never actually thought to just wander around. I think generally there are other bookings. The whole venue is usually booked out for functions and things like that. So I thought I'd just take the opportunity to wander into the treasury room, have a look at the chandeliers and what have you. But I'll give you a bit of a tour and hopefully we can see some other rooms in the building. And I'll show you the building from outside, because I think sometimes I forget that this channel, not only do I have viewers, many of which are from interstate, not from New South Wales, but there are also people from overseas as well that would love to see these buildings and, you know, where the Money Expos happen. So let's take a closer look. So I'm currently standing on the steps of the beautiful Town Hall building. The Money Expo is being held this weekend in the lower Town Hall. The upper area is much more impressive, so I'll make sure I sneak in some footage of that just to give you a bit of a look, as well as a bit of a look at the Money Expo itself. And this building is actually quite impressive. I'm going to run over the road now so I can give you a proper look at just how nice the front of this building is. You don't get the full effect here, so I'll run over the road and I'll give you a good look at it now.
Have a look at it.
There it is, the Town Hall in all of its glory. First opened in 1869. A very historical building in Sydney CBD. Just over the road, we also have the Queen Victoria building, which has a large statue, I don't know if you can see it there, of Queen Victoria. I'll take a photo of it so you can get a proper look. And you can get some nice coffee in there as well, just for anyone wondering.